Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
You will hear adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And the Paranormal with Jason.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. Oh, and you just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
And now, a new 2.5-minute mystery.
This 2.5-minute mystery is being brought to you by Ann Sanders, who lives in Reno, Nevada, and has written this one for us while on a 14-day quarantine after returning home from vacation. Now, here is her story. Bob, Carol, Ted, and Alice all live in the same house. Bob and Carol go out to a movie, and when they return, Alice is lying dead on the floor in a puddle of water and glass. It's obvious that Ted killed her, but Ted is not prosecuted or even severely punished. Why is that?
In just a minute, we'll have our solution. But first, a message from our sponsor.
Do you enjoy these 2.5-minute mysteries? Please let me know. Also, if you have one to share, I'd love to hear it. Go to ronsamazingstories.com and click on the Contact tab. And now, here is our solution. Did you figure it out? It's quite simple. Carol is a goldfish, and Ted is the cat that knocked over her fishbowl. No crime was committed. Now, did you get that one right? This 2.5-minute mystery was brought to you by Ann Sanders, who lives in Reno, Nevada. She sent this in while in quarantine with her goldfish, Carol, and her kitty, who, you guessed it, is named Ted. Now, she didn't say anything about where poor Bob was.
It's that you say?
Welcome to the podcast. Today we have a special Ghost Stories with Sylvia. Sylvia will share a story called Message from the Past that will leave you stunned and maybe even shocked.
I am stunned.
Well, you will be.
Okay, I will be stunned.
Thank you. Also, we answer a question from Dorothy Griffin of Columbus, Ohio. Dorothy wants to know if either Sylvia or I watch ghost hunting shows and what we think about them. This became quite a spirited conversation that you just won't want to miss.
Pun intended, right?
Yes, pun intended. As an added bonus, I will tell the amazing tale of Elmer McCurdy. This is a truly odd, not so important time in history.
Ron, am I supposed to know this guy?
Well, no, but I bet you will like his story.
Good enough.
2 more of you wrote in wanting to know your numbers. And I'm not talking about teaching mathematics. Todd Turner from New York and Jason White from California. Jason wanted me to limit it to the LA area, but I'm just not able to break it down quite that far. For New York, over the last 90 days, we have had 649 unique downloads, and for California, the number is 3,161. Many thanks to the people of these 2 great states. Our dartboard pick for this week is Saudi Arabia, which had 8 downloads. How about that? I received this email from Chester Vega, who didn't tell me where he was from. Chester writes, "Hey Ron, I've been a listener to the show since God created Adam and Eve. Your show has changed a lot over the years, and I have liked every decision except to drop the Horror Express. Personally, I would love to see that show be a weekly thing. Is there any hope? Chester." Well, Chester, I would have to say that both Jason and I, for the most part, love doing it. But with Jason's time constraints and mine, it's just not feasible right now. But rest assured, we have not dropped the concept completely. In fact, I hope to revive it in October as a special. So please, do hang in there. And finally this week, I received this comment from Tony Nolores on YouTube. Sorry, Tony, if I didn't get the name right. Tony is commenting on episode number 421, The Dogman's Story. He is referring to one sent in by SW Watch 336 titled The Horrible Loud Howl. The second story, I know that one. It was posted on the Cloak Hedgehog's Dogman sighting map. It's from 2005, happened in Green Bay, Wisconsin, 3 blocks from my sister's home. It's still woods around that area, and a train track runs through there now. Tony, that is very cool. I love it when there is a confirmation of a story. If I remember right, that was a creepy one about a girl hearing howls and actually seeing a dogman leaning against a fence. Thank you for your comment, Tony. Well, that's all I have for this week. Let's get to the rest of the show with this treat from Audible. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, computer, Kindle. Whatever you have, you can listen to Audible on it. So what am I listening to right now? Riley Mack and the Other Known Troublemakers. In this Audible original that's full of both humor and heart, a madcap gang of bold kid crusaders set off on an unforgettable adventure to thwart wrongdoers in their neighborhood. Here is the author, Chris Grabenstein, to tell you all about it.
Well, if I was doing a 30-second commercial for this book, I'd call it an Ocean's 12 starring 12-year-olds or a Mission Impossible starring middle graders. Well, when you get into the world of Riley Mack and the Other Known Troublemakers, you're going to first of all meet Riley Mack, who's the most clever 12-year-old I've ever created. And he runs around with a group called the Nat Pack. And it's kind of based, as when I was a kid, I loved the Mission Impossible series. And in the Nat Pack, you've got the Muscle Man, Mongo. You've got the Brains, whose name is Ben. You've got the actress Brianna. And in this story, we get a tech-savvy new kid joins the group called Jamal. Kid detectives and stories have always been popular, like Encyclopedia Brown and stuff, mostly because kids can fly under the radar undetected. It's kind of why I called my group of kids the Nat Pack. There's these little tiny annoying things that, but even though as small as they are, they can bring down like a full-grown human if you get gnats all over you. So I think kids as detectives will always be popular because we never expect them to be as clever as they are, but they're clever. Sorry, sir, you lose again.
Oh, it's all that greedy sheriff's fault.
Huh?
Never mind. Just keep spinning the wheel.
Sorry, sir, you lose again. Sorry, sir. I'm sure your luck will change.
I'm staying here until I win it all back. 200 on red. Come on, red.
Black wins.
I feel sick. Very, very sick.
Well, I hope everyone has a great time laughing and enjoying all the wonderful performances in the book, but I also hope they'll take away a few things, like maybe if they're looking for a family pet, to remember that adoption should be the first option. There's plenty of dogs and cats and gerbils out there already. Just go to the shelter and adopt one. And I think another thing I would love for people who listen to this to take away is to think about the difference between right and wrong. Sometimes what you do may seem wrong, but it might actually be right.
This is my lucky day.
You laugh a lot, sir, don't you?
So what do you get when you add up 1 middle school bully, 2 bank robbers, 57 puppies, 4,000 missing dollars, and 5 daring troublemakers led by the incomparable Riley Mack? One crazy caper. And you can have this book today. Here's what Audible has set up for us. Audible is offering a free audiobook and 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you can get Riley Mack and the other known troublemakers. Thank you, Audible. And now it's time for some ghost stories with Sylvia. We all love a good story, but what we truly crave is a ghost story. It's time now for Ghost Stories with Sylvia. Sylvia Schultz is a librarian and author by day, but at night, she becomes a ghost hunter. Following a lifetime spent in the pursuit of the weird and the strange, her non-fiction works include Ghost of the Illinois River, Fractured Spirits, 44 Years in Darkness, Hunting Demons, and The Spirits of Christmas. We now cross over the veil and join Sylvia as she tells us more tales from the unknown. Are you there, Sylvia?
I'm here. Come on in, Ron.
Are you looking at my mask this time?
Well, I'm just taking it as read that you wore a mask. How about if you sit over here, and I will take this seat over here?
Now, did you put that 6-foot tape mark there on the ground on purpose?
Well, yeah, we are trying to do the whole social distancing thing, but we can still chat and have just as fun of a talk at 6 feet as we can closer.
Well, I appreciate that. I had to give up the Casper mask. I couldn't figure out a way to seal it off, so I'm just wearing this, surgical mask. I know it's boring.
Okay. I want to get one of those masks that have the shark faces on them. Just freak everybody out.
All right. Well, a little bird told me that you're excited about a new program that is just now available, and you wanted to take a minute on the show and talk about it. And I say, let's start the show with bookshop.org. What the heck is that?
Yes. Well, people always ask me, how can I get your books? And I used to always say, well, they're available on Amazon. And this is still true, but I recently found a website called bookshop.org, and it's an alternative to Amazon. You can still order any author's books you like, and you can order my books through bookshop.org. But the interesting thing about this site is that it partners with independent bookstores. 10% of all your purchases goes into a big fund, and every month, this website will cut checks and send them off to indie bookstores. So it's a way to help your local bookstore without even leaving your house. It's wonderful, and I'm really encouraging people to use it.
That's fantastic. So essentially, it is help for every bookstore out there that's still out there trying to do their thing during this pandemic.
Yes, and I really encourage people to check it out. My books are on there. Anybody you can find on Amazon is also on bookshop.org. So check it out, order if you like, and know that with every order you place, you are also helping out independent bookstores.
Well, that's great. So bookshop.org, huh?
Yes.
That's incredible. So I encourage you, give it a try. And if you're buying books, why not buy them there?
I'm going to be doing blog posts about it on sylviaschultz.wordpress.com. So if you'd like, check out the blog at WordPress, and I'll have all the information there on bookshop.org.
Well, thank you for bringing that to us, Sylvia. I appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Well, so as been the case with, I'm going to say the last 5-6 episodes we've done, we have an email.
Wonderful.
And this one is a little controversial, I think.
Ooh.
And
that sounds promising.
It is, but I might have to hold myself in check a little bit on this one because I definitely have an opinion on this one.
Oh, sounds intriguing.
All right. Well, it comes from Dorothy Griffin. Dorothy lives in Columbus, Ohio, and she sent in this email. Hey, Ron, I was listening to one of the ghost hunting shows, the one with Zach. I find his demeanor and actions disturbing. If I was a spirit, I would feel like the whole affair was a dog and pony show. I would not perform for this guy. But somehow I find myself watching, just to see what awful thing he does next. Why do I do this? Do you watch any of these shows? Does Sylvia watch them? Well, let's start with, does Sylvia watch them?
Start from the end and work our way back.
Why not?
I've watched them on occasion. I'll tell you the situation in which I watch ghost hunting shows is when I go to a very famous place like Villisca or Waverly, and I want to see what other experiences people have had there. Ghost hunting shows, ghost hunters, and ghost adventures, it's a pretty safe bet that they've been there before and they will have some sort of information about the place that I'm planning on visiting. And I don't watch these shows on a regular basis. I seek them out just for their experiences at a place that I am going to visit. And Dorothy, I really have to agree with you that some of those shows they're a little sensational. We'll put it that way. I don't know how much of those shows are, well, actually, I'll take that back. I do know that quite a bit of those shows are kind of reactions that are stronger than they need to be in order to get people to watch. People are fascinated with the paranormal, and if something spooky is going on, if something scary is happening, that means people are going to watch longer. I've been on some of these shows. I've been on plenty of investigations myself, and I can tell you there's a huge difference between what you see on TV and what we experience for 5, 6, 7 hours at a time. It's not all jump scares. It's not all moving shadows. It's not all, did you see that? It's a lot of sitting in the dark quietly and just waiting for something to happen. And people aren't going to watch 7 hours of that.
No, they've only got an hour to entertain us.
Exactly. They've got an hour to get people's attention, and people want to see something happen. So yeah, some of it is their reactions, the ghost hunters' reactions, the hosts' reactions, and they're sometimes trying to jazz it up a little bit.
Well, in my case, do I watch these shows? I'm going to honestly say not anymore. I did back in the original iterations of Ghost Hunters with Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson. I did enjoy that show because originally I thought they had a good heart. I thought that they were doing what they needed to do to help people. But even their show over time got messed up. And they were even caught cheating and creating content just so that they would have something for the show. And to me,
yes,
if you're going to make a ghost hunter show, make it about the history.
Exactly.
That is what people are interested in. And then when something happens that collaborates that history, then you've got something. But just making stuff up just to build us up and go, wow, look at that chair moved. I don't buy it. I don't like it. And no, I don't watch it anymore. I did. And I'm going to say 2004, 2005 timeframe in that area is when I was really interested in what they were doing. But now, not so much. And, while I have seen Ghost Adventures, I think it's Ghost Adventures with Zach, I find that show disturbing myself. Oh. I don't want to put them down because they do have a huge amount of followers. People love what Zach does and are awed by his abilities and his demeanors and the way he does things. But I unfortunately am not, or fortunately, am not one of those guys. I don't appreciate, I think she said it best, the dog and pony show.
Oh, yeah.
I don't appreciate that. I don't think the spirits would appreciate that. And that's just my opinion.
Just to give an example, before I went to the Villisca house, I know we mention that quite often on the show because it's an amazing place. I watched the Ghost Adventures episode on Villisca before I went. And the beginning of the show, the introduction was Zach sitting on the porch swing of the barn, which is behind the house. And he was talking with a lady who used to live there, and she was telling him about her experiences and how frightened she was about the place and how the awful experiences she'd had in there. And I can understand that. It would be very traumatic to have to live in a place where such a tragic event happened. But it seems that that's what Zach focused on. He focused on the awfulness of what happened, and he never really mentioned the fact that this was a place where 4 children were being raised in a happy, loving atmosphere. They had a couple of little girl friends over to spend the night. He seemed to gloss over that fact that not only was it a place where an awful thing happened, but it was for much more of its history than that. It was a place where a family was being raised. And I think you have to take that into account, too, when you look at the haunting of a place. Look at everything, not just the bad parts. And I think, Ron, that you had a very interesting point a few minutes ago when you were talking about ghost hunters. And we're talking about Jason and Grant. At the beginning, yes, that's exactly what they were trying to do. That was their reason for being, is they were going out and trying to help people that were having paranormal issues. And I think they've kind of veered away from that first mission statement into, well, let's give our audience what we think they want and make it a little more sensational. And I think they've kind of moved away from helping people who need help.
You got to wonder, because they have split into 2 different groups now. Ghost Hunters,
so I've heard.
Yeah, Ghost Hunters is still around, and it's ran by Grant. And then Jason has a new show called Ghost Nation. And so you got to wonder if there wasn't something there that made them say, hey, I want to stay with my core values. And I'm not going to say which one I believe did or didn't, because I haven't seen the shows. But one has to wonder if maybe somehow that there was a divide there between doing the sensationalized ghost hunting versus real ghost hunting. And, I don't have that answer.
That is entirely possible. And being in the ghost hunting community, I have heard some scuttlebutt that I'm not going to repeat here, but I have seen some, I have seen some questionable recordings of evidence collecting, and I'm using air quotes there, and I'm not going to say which one it was, but yeah, I think that was the reason for the rift. And I was aware that the rift had happened, and I was aware that there were two shows, but I haven't followed either of them since the split. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think one of them kind of went a more sensational direction, and one of them continued with the core values.
Yeah. So having said all of that, the questions were simple. If you're doing it for a pure entertainment reason, Dorothy, I'm guessing that's why you do that, is because those shows can be entertaining. They certainly can. And if you like to get a little chill or a thrill, then watch them. But in the back of your mind, I think we are responsible for understanding that the ghost hunting shows on television are just that, entertainment. Don't accept them for any more or any less. And that's what I would do. And then maybe I would be able to watch them. I personally can't do that, but that's what I think. And so that's probably why you do this. Maybe others feel the same way, is you're looking for that entertainment and you love paranormal stories.
That's why I watch them every once in a while, is for the stories. Can you tell me a good story?
There are a few out there that do. A lot of those are gone now. I don't really know the current state of ghost hunting on television.
Honestly, I don't either.
I know that they're still out there. You can certainly see them. In fact, there are rumors that the Travel Channel is going to rename itself from the Travel to some sort of paranormal name.
Oh, how fun.
Well, because 90% of their stuff is ghost hunting now. So
yeah.
And paranormal.
Now, I did do, several months ago, I was asked to be a guest on the Paranormal Caught on Camera.
Oh, yeah.
So that's still a going concern.
Yeah. That type of show is okay. Now, I have seen that particular show. And essentially, all they're doing is presenting evidence that they collect. They don't make a lot of, this is 100% real, this really happened. It's more of, here's the tape, you decide. And I can live with that.
Yeah.
Now, they do make it exciting. I'm not going to lie. You don't watch the show and they bring on people that experienced it and talk about how the video or sound or whatever the evidence might be, they talk about it, and that is a little sensationalized. But for the most part, they show you the video. They don't say, this is 100% real. They just say, hey, look at this.
This is what we collected, yes. And I agree with that, because if you have the person who experienced that, that is going to be a little bit sensational because it's their personal experience.
Exactly.
They're happy to share it. They're excited about it. So yeah, it is going to be a little sensational, but I'm totally down with that. I'm totally behind that because it's your experience. Yeah. You're jazzed about it. Yeah.
One of their very early shows that I happened to watch was at a gas station, and I believe it was in Parma, Idaho, or nearby Parma, Idaho, which is right on the border between Oregon and Idaho. And it was at a gas station, and they were showing this, what they said was an angel. And they were working on it, and they showed this video. Well, it pretty much was debunked as a moth. And it wasn't an angel at all. It was just an insect. So you got to give them credit for that kind of thing. So
if they're willing to publish a debunking, absolutely, yes, because it shows they have integrity.
Now, I don't know if they continued to do that, but I do remember that one particular episode. It was very early on, very early in the series, like maybe even episode 1 that they did that on. And I was thinking, okay, this I like.
Good for them.
Yeah. I guess everybody in the community saw this video and thought for sure that this was an angel. And it was, that people were coming to the gas station and hanging out and all kinds of different things. So, but yes, it was eventually debunked as an insect that had gotten caught in the camera lens.
Oh, no.
Which you can understand. They have quite fluffy wings.
Well, yeah.
Now, I know I'm going to get some mail on that because I'm sure I missed something on that, but still, I can appreciate that. Anyway, how do you want to wrap this up? What do we want to say to Dorothy on this one, Sylvia?
Oh, Dorothy, I think that if you're watching the shows for entertainment value, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you know in your heart that the spirits are their own people. And you're absolutely right to get the impression that, no, I don't want to put up with this dog and pony show. I wouldn't say stop watching them. I wouldn't say boycott Ghost Adventures or anything like that, because Zach does a little bit of history at the beginning of his shows. But you know this, Dorothy. I'm not telling you anything you don't know when I say, yeah, it's done for the entertainment value. So you know in your heart that you respect the spirits they're talking about. I'd say keep watching, but yeah, take it with a grain of salt.
And I'm going to second that. I'm not even going to add anything to that. I think you said it just right. Dorothy, it is for entertainment. And if you're entertained, watch it.
Yeah.
All right, Sylvia. So let's get back to it. You have but one ghost story for us this time. Is that true? Only one?
I have only one story this time, but it is amazing. Ron, I have read through this story at least a dozen times in preparation for sharing it with people on the show. Mm-hmm. And it has given me chills every single time I read it. It is a bit on the long side, but the payoff is outstanding. I really think people are going to enjoy this story.
All right. Well, the story is called Message from the Past, but I have a question for you, Sylvia.
Yes?
Is that past, P-A-S-S-E-D, or past, P-A-S-T?
Well, I think it could go either way. You listen to the story and you can make your own decision about what the title should be.
Okay. Well, I'm waiting with bated breath. Go ahead and tell us the story Message from the Past.
All right. So this story I found on a website called Quora, where people ask questions and other people send in their answers. And the question that was asked was, what is your most interesting paranormal experience? And someone responded to it. And they wrote that there was a friend of theirs who shared a story with her. Back in the early 1980s, this person, who she'll call Elizabeth, was newly widowed. She had an infant son. Her husband had been killed in a wreck with an 18-wheeler. She had gotten a big insurance payout from the trucking company, whose fault it was. So she used some of the money to buy an older Victorian home. And her plan was to live in this home and restore it as she lived there. She lived there about 20 years. And it being an older home, Victorian era, she thought maybe she'd have a lot of paranormal experiences, but she only had one. And this is it. One day she was in her laundry room doing the laundry. The only other person in the house was her toddler son, a young toddler, about 2 years old. And the son was taking a nap upstairs. Elizabeth had been doing research on the history of the house and where everything was back in the days when it was first built. And she had found out through her research that the room she was using as a laundry room had once been the live-in maid's quarters. So Elizabeth was doing her laundry. She bent down and picked up a bundle of clothes, turned around to the washing machine and faced the room. And the room had changed. It was no longer her laundry room. She was in a sparsely furnished bedroom. There was an old-style armoire in the corner. There was a bedside table with a wash basin on it like they used to have, and it looked like it would have appeared about 100 years before her time. In the bed was a boy about 12 years old. Elizabeth said she could see his face quite distinctly. He was blonde with freckles. He was not wearing a shirt. She couldn't really tell how he was dressed other than that because the bedspread was pulled up to the middle of his chest. His hair was wet. And his face, the left side of his face, was covered with blood. There was blood on the pillow and blood on the bed, and he seemed to have a gash above his left ear. And Elizabeth just stared at this vision for a couple of seconds, just unbelieving at what she was seeing. Then the boy turned his head, opened his eyes, made eye contact with her, and said, "Hurry upstairs. The baby is in danger. Please hurry." And then the scene vanished. And she was once again standing in her laundry room. The whole event took less than a minute. So, of course, Elizabeth dropped the load of laundry and ran immediately upstairs to check on her son. And her son was in his crib with a teddy bear, and he had taken off the button eye of the teddy bear and was choking on it.
Oh, my word.
And she was able to save his life. So, one day, Elizabeth went to the local public library to do some genealogy. She was working on a project. She wanted to find the obituary of her great-grandmother who died sometime in the early 1890s in October. So the library had the local newspaper on microfilm, like libraries do, and each roll covered 1 year, which is pretty standard for microfilm rolls. Now, this was an older machine, so you have to thread the microfilm onto the spindle and fast forward through it using the dial, and it's just a pain.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, especially if you're looking for something in October. So Elizabeth she knew she was looking for something farther on in the year, so she's fast forwarding and using the hand crank and getting kind of tired of using the hand crank. But at one point she stopped to see how close she was to October and found out that she was in the microfilm at early August. And a name jumped out from the newspaper page at her, the name Hiram Wallace. Now, Elizabeth had done research on the history of the house and knew that Hiram Wallace was the first owner of the house and that he had lived there in the 1890s. So she was like, "Oh, hey, Hiram Wallace, I will go ahead and read this article now that I'm here." As she was reading it, every hair on her head just stood up. The article was titled, "A Terrible Tragedy." It described how a group of about a dozen young boys had gone swimming in Maple Creek, which was a stream not far from where her house was. The article mentioned that the boys' swimming hole was about 200 yards south of the turnpike, which would have put the location of the stream very close to her house. One of the boys, 13-year-old Gilbert Vanderpool, had slipped on the bank while trying to dive into the stream, had fallen and had hit his head on a rock. The boys started screaming for help, and they attracted the attention of workmen who were building a new house nearby. The workmen came over, picked up young Gilbert, and carried him to the nearest inhabited home, which was the home of Hiram Wallace. The article didn't say to which bedroom Gilbert was taken, but the only downstairs bedroom was the maid's room. And he was badly hurt. It wouldn't have made much sense at all for them to carry him upstairs. They probably put him in a downstairs bedroom, which was the maid's room. They summoned a doctor. Before the doctor arrived, Gilbert regained consciousness. He did not appear to be in any pain, notwithstanding the gash on his head. But according to this article, he was very agitated and confused. He kept insisting that there was a child in danger in the house, and he kept begging bystanders to assist the child. Those who were with Gilbert tried to reassure him that there was no child in danger in the house. And then Gilbert exclaimed, "Thank God he is safe," and died.
Gilbert died?
Yes. Those are his last words. "Thank God he is safe."
My word.
And this was in the newspaper article.
Okay, I've heard a lot of, we'll call this a ghost story. I kind of wonder if it truly is a ghost story or a time shift of some sort. But
you could put it under time slip, yeah.
But that is amazing. That is truly incredible.
Yeah.
I have never.
So now every year, Elizabeth puts flowers on the grave of a boy who died more than half a century before she was even born.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I can't wait to hear that story again myself when I play this over.
I told you the payoff was awesome.
That is truly amazing.
Yeah. This is one of my all-time favorites.
I don't even know what to say. I don't have a question. I think that's incredible.
Yeah. Incredible.
That you don't see that kind of documentation to go with a story ever.
Exactly. The fact that it's documented.
And the words that he said, he was, and that was all in the article.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to look at that microfilm.
Yeah, me too. And in fact, I could see you taking this and turning it into a book.
Yeah.
Or at least one of your stories in your books. This is incredible. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It just is. The whole time, the thing I was thinking is that, the possibility, especially when they had eye contact, when you said the two had eye contact, I was interested in that because of the fact that is one of the key ingredients for a time slip, is that you actually can at times interact with people that are involved on the other side of the time slip.
Sometimes, if you're lucky, yeah.
My personal experience that I had in my local park here was looking at a shadow of a person, which my research showed that he was at a bus stop that had been there 50 years before. He was standing in the exact same spot as a bus stop. Oh. And he was wearing his fedora, but it was just an outline, a shadow, broad daylight, but still I saw that. And was able to make that connection that in that time, the park was a Army base. And in that particular location in the park is where the bus stop was for that Army base.
How fun. I remember you telling me that he was standing sort of in the bleachers.
Yeah, in the bleachers. And I should probably tell that whole story. I was out walking the dog. My sister's dog. She had left him with me for the weekend. Mm-hmm. And this dog is one of the shyest animals you'll ever see. Oh. He does not want anything to do with people. In fact, every time I would get together with this dog, it took a day for him to go, "Oh yeah, you're right. You're okay." And we were out walking, and I remember we were coming around the back side of the park, and there was a couple there, and they tried to pet him, and he shied away, backed away like they were trying to kill him. And so I said, "Don't worry, he's just very shy, da-da-da-da." And we were coming around, the dog and I were coming around the back side of the park, and there, at this ball diamond, there's several of them there, in the middle, broad daylight, sunlight beaming down, no way it could have been a shadow of any kind, was a shadow. And it was standing in the middle of the bleachers. And when I say the middle, I don't mean that he was in the exact middle of the bleachers. He was standing on the ground. Half his body was on the ground. The other half was above the bleachers, cut in half by these bleachers. And then you could see an outline. And the only thing I know for sure is that he was wearing a fedora of some type, a hat from 50s. You know, the hats they wore.
Sure.
40s and 50s. And I was watching this, and the dog was reacting to it. Because he was backing up like, oh, there's a person. I don't want to have anything to do with this person. He was backing up. And so I walked around the outside of this huge telephone pole, and in the top of this pole is lighting for the ballpark. And I passed, and when I came by the other side of this thing, it was gone. Just vanished.
Yeah, and that was a Lights Out episode back in the day.
Oh yeah, I was on your show, and I told that story. Yeah. So I'm not saying that is as grand as your story, but to me that is my experience with a time slip, because I am convinced now that I saw someone standing at that bus stop.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of it. I don't think it was all that paranormal. It was just a time slip. Just a time slip. And it really is my only paranormal experience that I can honestly say was paranormal. But anyway, truly, truly incredible story, Sylvia. Thank you for sharing that with us. I loved it. And I know the listeners are out there going, wow. And if you're not, shame on you.
It was my pleasure to share that.
Wow. Incredible. I don't even know where to go from that. Maybe just move on with the show.
Just sit with it. Just let that sink in for a little while. But yes, thank you for allowing me to share that incredible story. I hope your listeners enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. Well, let's move on, and let's talk about Lights Out and the blog. The blog this time was pretty interesting, I thought. And if I have your permission, I'd like to just read it to the listeners. Is
that
ahead. All right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So Sylvia's blog from this week is, it wasn't always easy being Shakespeare. The playwright had to deal with unauthorized reproduction of his plays. Pirating in the Elizabethan age, stenographers would attend his plays, writing down the lines at a feverish pace. Then they would copy the copy and sell manuscripts of the play loaded with copying errors. This glut on the market drove the price of Shakespeare's plays down to a penny. This rock-bottom price kept the plays popular and accessible to all, and probably helped make Shakespeare the best-known playwright of all time. So, pirating is a good thing, is what you're saying.
Well, for Shakespeare it was.
So, where did you find that? Is that actually true?
It is true. I actually collected that from a book by Chuck Palahniuk. He is known for writing, I don't know if you would call it slash punk fiction. He's known for writing fiction that is really graphically gory and nasty, but he also has written a book of nonfiction, and it's a book about writing, about finding stories, and he has some interesting things to say about the writing process. So, and that story just kind of jumped out at me, and I thought it would be a fun little addition to my Today I Learned thing that I do every Monday.
Fascinating. So, I had no idea that pirating was a problem back in the Elizabethan
I didn't either.
age.
But thanks to that, we know all about Shakespeare, and we have plenty of copies of his plays.
Some of them laced with errors, I guess, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sylvia. Well, tell us about Lights Out. I know we're getting closer and closer to Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yes, I am going to be sharing my experiences at the museum there in Wisconsin Dells. And I will tell everyone about my encounter with the spirit of an ancient Egyptian princess at the museum.
Now, if that's a teaser, I don't know what is. Not 100% sure, but that should be out by the time you're hearing this.
It should be. God willing and the creek don't rise.
So how do we find it?
Let's go to sylviaschultz.wordpress.com and click on Lights Out, or you can follow me on Facebook. I post Lights Out links on Facebook as well. And you can either watch it on YouTube with the pretty pictures, or you can listen to it wherever you find your favorite podcast, just like Ron's Amazing Stories.
Which is found so many places I don't even keep track anymore.
Me too. I just say Stitcher and iTunes and Apple.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just there are a few that I check each week to make sure that they actually publish because they're important. Like the iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes. I make sure that those actually publish because those are pretty big ones.
They are. And isn't it a wonderful thing that we live in the era that we do now where we can share our stories on so many platforms and people can enjoy them through Stitcher and iHeartRadio and iTunes. And they've got so many opportunities to find Ron's Amazing Stories and Lights Out. And we're storytellers. That's what we do.
You know, and I've been toying with the idea of even expanding upon my story ideas and finally sitting down and taking to pen and getting a book out with the listeners' amazing stories.
You keep threatening to do that. I'm waiting for it.
Look, I'm sitting at my computer right now, and I'm going to click here on Launchpad, and then I'm going to click on Scribner. Okay, that's what I use. I literally just here. Under the head-scratching stories, I have about 20. Under orbs, I have about 25. Under UFOs, I have about 10. Under lost time, I have about 7. Under monsters, well, at least 40. All right, here we go. Under ghosts, 48. And the last category, Jim Thompson, my brother. I have 8.
Yeah.
If that's not enough for a book, I don't know what is.
Well, there you go. I think that is enough for a book, yeah.
I have been getting them, collecting them, putting them into categories, so it is a work in progress.
And you have a built-in title, too.
I do. Ron's Amazing Stories.
Ron's Amazing Stories.
Well, Sylvia, I gotta say, this particular episode truly was amazing. You made it so with that story.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me share it.
Goodbye, Sylvia.
Bye, Ron.
I'll see myself out. Ghost Stories with Sylvia was brought to you by GladysGoodies.com. Their treats are 100% natural and are a nutrient-rich treat that pets love to eat. You can get these and some really cool swag for your dog and cat at GladysGoodies.com. And don't forget to use our promo code RONS, that's RONS, to get a 20% discount on all of your purchases. That website again is GladysGoodies.com. Well, that was another great time with Sylvia. If you want to visit her on her own turf, head to sylviaschultz.wordpress.com. There you will find her blog and access to the podcast Lights Out. I will have all of her links available in the show notes. Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you, Gladys Goodies.
Not so important times in history.
In this segment, we take a look at historical events that may otherwise go unnoticed. We look at history with a fish-eyed lens, giving a perspective that should provide no insight to anyone or any time. But it is historical, or hysterical, as the case may be. Join us now for this event in history. This time we meet Elmer McCurdy. He was a really inept train robber. He once tried to blow up a safe to get some silver coins and ended up melting the safe and the coins. Another time, he tried to rob a train, but all he got was a bottle of whiskey and $5 from the conductor. After that, he holed up at a farm, drank all the whiskey, and got into a shootout with the local sheriff. He was shot in the chest and died in 1911. But that's not the end of the story. They took him to a funeral home where he was embalmed with a lot of arsenic because they thought it'd be a while before someone would claim the body. And Joseph L. Johnson, the owner and undertaker, was right. Johnson decided, I'm going to make some money off this guy, and put him on display as the Oklahoma outlaw and charged money to see him. If that wasn't bad enough, Johnson's kids used to put Elmer on roller skates and scare other children with him. Eventually, a man calling himself Ever contacted Johnson claiming to be Elmer McCurdy's long-lost brother from California. He was not his brother and, in fact, owned a sideshow. Elmer was now on the circuit. He went all over the country and was sold a few more times. He ended up in a museum where he was rented out from time to time. Once, he was in a movie theater and was shot while a holdup took place. How about that? He was eventually sold to Pike. This was a rundown pier amusement park in Long Beach, California. They placed him in an Old West scene where he was hung by the neck. It was part of the Laugh in the Dark, which was their ghost/funhouse ride. In December of 1976, they were filming an episode of The $6 Million Man, and they were at that park. While moving some stuff around, they discovered that Elmer was not a dummy, but rather a real person. You see, his arm broke off. The local coroner was called. Elmer was eventually identified and then buried at Boot Hill in Oklahoma, under concrete, so he couldn't go wandering again. Now, there's a lot more to this story if you're interested. I will have a picture of Elmer and links for you to follow in the show notes. That was episode number 446, and these are the people that made it happen. Ann Sanders, Todd Turner, Jason White, Chester Vega, Tony Nolorez, and Sylvia Schultz. Thank you all. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button makes us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.